Hello, welcome to Christy TV, the State Talking YouTube channel. We're talking the Jimmy Stockings story, part 3. If you haven't seen 1 and 2, you're able to catch up. Yes, now, we think Jimmy Stockings and Bartley Gorman, we think two of the toughest, hardest UK gypsy fighters ever, no doubt. Bartley Gorman, the author of King of the Gypsies, and Jimmy Stockings, yes, On the Cobbles. Now, much they have in common, a huge amount in common, but one thing I discovered whilst researching, and nobody else has told the story, they actually had taken the very same fighter so lightly, yes, in a drunken state, and it left a million questions unanswered. Would the gentleman in question, who they had given a slap to instead of a punch, in a drunken state, and that gentleman is the outlaw known as. So let's go into this story and part 3, and let's start with, go slightly forward to come backwards. Let's start with Bartley Gorman, although it went in the reverse order. Bartley Gorman had some beef with a fella called who he nicknamed the outlaw Henry Francis, yeah? Henry Francis. Bartley was at a funeral in a pub afterwards, celebrating the life of a person, Billy Gorman, I think it was. And anyway, much drink had taken place. A huge amount of drink had taken place. And Bartley Gorman had met a fella that his brother said, Henry Francis, he just didn't like the look of him from the very first outset. Now, I don't quite know how you don't like the look of someone. I suppose we had that feeling, but anyway, I find it difficult to judge people by looking at them. But Sam Gorman apparently said to Bartley, I don't like this fella. And anyway, Bartley says, well, don't worry about it, we're having some drinks and so on. So they continued, and much drink had taken place by all accounts. And right at the end of the evening, Bartley had into the car park, and Henry Francis was looking for a fight with one of his mates, and in the end he said he was talking fighting all night, and Bartley had agreed to fight Henry Francis. Henry Francis apparently was in a vest or a t-shirt, you know, more fighting equipment. Bartley was in a suit, dressed more gentlemanly-like, not the best attire to fight in. But what he done, yeah, he walked over to Henry Francis, yeah, some 18, 20 years his senior, yeah, and give him an unserious type slap, yeah, not a punch. Anyway, that started a fight that ensued, and Bartley, an aging Bartley and a drunk Bartley had taken a serious beating from Henry Francis's head, noted to be a good head butter, which I find a bit strange because that's all in fighting, it's not bare knuckle. And so it was a great bare knuckle fight. It's an all in fight, isn't it? And in fact, Bartley Gorman, one of Bartley Gorman's mates there present, took extremely unkindly for a man using his head, because it's not the way we do it really. You can say all the head, and Lenny McLean talks about it, but really it's sort of boxing without any protection, isn't it? Really, that's the way we do it. Anyway, so that's what happened there, and poor Bartley, by his own admissions, had taken such a beating, he'd broken his cheekbones, and he was looking for a return match the next day, but he said, well, with the injuries he sustained from the beating he took from Francis, and the amount of drink, he went to the Fury brothers, John Fury, Peter and Huey, I believe, to ready for fair play, but he just was not in a fit state. And I must say, I'll always use my mind. I find it a little bit disappointingly that Francis would want, I'm not criticising you, Henry, because I've never met your mate, so I'm just saying the way I see it, right? I'd find it a little bit difficult to want to fall out with somebody who's the best part 20 years older than me, because I'm around the Bartley Gorman age now. I know that, look, if a 31, 2, 3-year-old picked on me now, I don't want no sympathy votes. What I do is what I've done. Like Bartley didn't want. It's what we do, it's what we are. But I've also been 31, 32, and I found that was a very prime in my life. And there was a couple of occasions where I could have taken situations in with older men, and I'm pleased to say I don't really want any gold stars or pats on the back, but I didn't. And they had plenty of larrup for me to do so, but I didn't. I just declined and took a back seat and just read over it, because I knew that these are people in our culture we refer to as uncles, and I just didn't go there. You know what I mean? Anyway, that was that. I'm not criticising. I wasn't there. I wasn't in that situation. That's just me. I would have preferred to have maybe smoothed it over than fight with a 20-something-year-old man, you know, 18, 20 years. Anyway, that was that. So that was the story with Bartley Gorman. Now, almost identical. We now go, this is the three-part story on Jimmy Stockings. Almost identical, except a couple of differences. Jimmy Stockings is, at this stage, Peterborough Fair, I think around 1987, 88, he's around 29, 30-year-old in his prime. And Henry Francis is a bit younger, I believe, 25, 26. And anyway, so he goes a bit like this. Henry Francis had a version. Stockings come round, shouting around, laying off his mouth, and pushing a 14-year-old boy around. And Stockings attempted or smacked Francis, and he unleashed an attack on Stockings. Yeah, and just like Gorman, Francis says that he broken Stockings' cheekbones, and Stockings said that he'd be looking with a barrage of punches. Stockings said he was in no fit state to fight, and that was that. They would fight in the morning. Yeah, that was the version. And Francis said he was in no fit state to fight in the morning. There wouldn't have been no fight. That's Henry Francis' version. Jimmy Stockings' version, no mention of pushing 14-year-old boys around. Very similar story in the sense that they were playing gambling, spinning coins. That much was for sure. Jim went out, and just a bit like Sam Gorman, he just said, I don't know why again, but he just said he took an instant dislike. Even in a drunken state, he just didn't like Henry Francis. Now again, I don't know how you do that, and I'm not one to judge another person, never. Always judge as you find. Yeah, but yeah, so Stockings just thought he was larrapy, and he said he did remember, I mean, very, very drunk, he'd been drinking all day, it was around midnight. And he said he did remember, and he didn't know how he'd done it. He landed a backhander, just like Gorman, a slap. And possibly they should have been punching this man. If you're going to do anything at all, punch, don't slap. But he did, and laid a slap on Francis, and he admits that, and he said he was the instigator of that, and no doubt, no doubt about it. He said he was the first one to take a slap at Francis, just like Gorman did. So very, almost amazing, really. These people don't even know each other, Gorman and Stockings, two great warriors, but they do the same thing to the same man. It's almost like a winning the lottery odds, isn't it? You know, and they have a similar initial opinions. It's amazing. So anyway, the slap, Francis goes out, and he says, Jim's version was, so he said, oh yeah, he said, Tom Taylor, boxers, Tom was out there, and he said, how do you feel, Jim? He said, oh, of course, I said, I feel all right, but he said, I discovered enough, I know that I was too drunk. He said earlier, just a couple of hours before, his wife told him, but he was holding his baby daughter, and he was so unsteady 2 or 3 hours before, she come and took his baby daughter from him in fear that he might fall over. And this was all discovered after, you know, his wife reported this, and he said a 10-year-old child would have beaten me that night, but he said, as drunk as I was, I had enough sense to say, look, let's do it tomorrow. So he said, I went, didn't lose any sleep about it, black eyes or something, he said. Bones broken in my face? No, never. And if there was, he said, I would not have given a fuck. I still would have thought. He said, there was nothing wrong with my face. He had woken around 7 o'clock, had a stretch, walked out my trailer. He said, and I was ready to fight Henry Francis. Henry Francis had disappeared by his own admissions during the night. You know, possibly, arguably in fear of more numbers going to be there. And, you know, maybe in fear he wouldn't have got the straightener. But Jim's version was, you know, I had friends there the night before, he said, and nobody jumped in and picked on him. He said it was a fight between me and him. He said I was ready to fight in the morning, and he wasn't. And I continued to stay at the Peterborough Fair, his country western show, and Francis did not show. And at the end of the afternoon, he said, I jumped on the bar and told every travelling person that was there, and others alike, he said, you tell Henry Francis, I'm ready for him, I'll come to Doncaster for him. And that was that. And a week or 2 weeks later, we were all running off memory now. Yeah, I'm running off the story, not the memory. And he makes his way to Doncaster races. Jim goes to a trailer site in an attempt to find Francis, and he don't. And he then goes to Doncaster races, and in an attempt to fight him, and he's not there. And another fellow traveller said, that's a friend of Jim's who was there from the north. He said that's Henry Francis's dad and brother, respectively. And somebody into that Jim going to fight or it, the brother. And Jim said, no, not in a million years. My beef with Henry, nothing at all to do with his brother. I don't work like that. But he said he did walk over to his dad and his brother, and he said, Yeah, there is 30 of us here, approximately, from London. He said, and we're here to see fair and fit. You know, because in an interview, Francis said he could get, at the drop of an hat, 70 men on his team. And Jim said, yeah, we've come here, he said, but the other 29 men will be watching me fair and fit. He said to Henry's brother and father, respectively, if you tell Henry to come here, it will be a straight fight. And 100% straight fight. They won't be fighting the others 29 people here, he'll be fighting me in a straightener. And that didn't happen, and I think they went to a pub in hope, an attempt to find Henry to settle a score. And they didn't, and that was it. And Henry Francis had his version, Jimmy his version. He said, if Henry Francis wants a victory over a drunk Jimmy Stockings, he said he's got that, and I can't deny that. Not in a million years would I deny Henry Francis had me on that drunken night. Bartley Gorman being sober, Bartley Gorman being younger, what would have happened between him and the outlaw Henry Francis, that I don't know. If Jimmy Stockings had been sober, the next morning, had Henry Francis been there, it's $1 million question. This is just a version of events. Time has passed. Sadly, Bartley Gorman passed on. Bless him, I believe he made friends with Henry Francis, and Henry Francis is still going well, and as is Jim. But it's $1 million question. We would never know. But here is the true, both versions of events, and this is coming towards the end of the part 3, the Jimmy Stockings series. And I can tell you one thing, I don't know who would have won the fight, but I can tell you one story of King of the Gypsies. Once King of the Gypsies, Gypsy Johnny Frankham, number 5 in the world, like heavyweight champion, yeah, fought exhibition fights with the greatest Muhammad Ali. I was actually privileged one night. I was a younger man, I was probably around 30-year-old, I was the baby of the crew, if you like, and I was in the company of John H. Strachey, champion of the world, Les Stevens, Southern Area champion, Gypsy Johnny Frankham, Chris Finnegan, European gold medalist, and I was with a couple of elderly gentlemen also on our table, and apologise, I can't remember the name, they were national ABA champions, and I was taking all this wonderful, wonderful stories in. We were in a boxing show in West London, and I looked over to my left-hand side, and I had a little chance to talk. I do like talking, as you probably know, but also really like listening and learning. And I had a chance to talk, and I looked over to my left, and there was a gentleman in the ring, in the corner, a cornerman coach, and his name was Wally Swift Senior. So Colin Hart from the Sun paper says that he once witnessed Wally Swift be the bravest fighter ever seen in the UK, and I told this story. I said I just recently read from a column in the Sun paper that Colin Hart said that the bravest fighter he'd ever seen was Wally Swift. He broke his jaw in the second round, yeah, of a 10-round fight, and his corner threatened to pull him out, and he said, if you ever pull me out, I'll never fight with you again. And he went on to win the fight. And I said, Colin Hart from the Sun said he's the bravest, toughest fighter he'd ever seen. And Johnny Frankham, yeah, gently put his piece in. He said, well, you tell Colin Hart from the Sun, he ain't met Jimmy Stockings yet. Yeah, so if you're getting, I think I'll leave it on that one. But Jimmy, if people like Johnny Frankham think he's the hardest man they'd ever seen, but Henry Francis have beaten him sober, he might well have done. But he'd have to have been a hell of a puncher, that I can tell you. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. The 3-part stories of Jimmy Stockings. You can catch them all up later on. And in the meantime, thank you very much.